like that album.
That song, I mean, when you're at the gym, I don't know how many RPMs it is per minute, but fuck, that song is
Oh no,
dope.
for lifting, dude, the Urban Assault remix.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Anyway,
Are we ready?
we're ready.
All right. Oh, sorry. I didn't. All right, here we go. It can be fixed in post. It can be fixed in post. Fuck it, we'll do it live.
We're not fixing anything.
Screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you. This is my boomstick.
What's your favorite scary movie?
All right. Good evening and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. I am your host, David, and with me, as usual, is Neri
Howdy.
and Daniel.
What up, y'all?
I don't know why this seems silly today, but it does. It does. And so I noticed. I don't know if it was the last time, maybe the time before, but Daniel, you change your glasses like every episode.
Yeah. I try to.
Oh, okay. I've never noticed this until I commented on the glasses last time, and you were like, "Oh yeah, no, I found them in there." So that was my impression of you. So for those of you that have only been listening to these episodes, you got to watch live to see what Daniel's going to be wearing next week, because it's I don't know. I'm predicting a red pair of glasses next week.
See what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have predicted that for this episode, but
White like the snow, my friend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rum red, maybe. So this episode, we are going into one of my absolute favorite horror movies of all time. I'm not sure how everyone else feels about this one, but this was Neri's pick. So last episode, previously on Shiver, Neri instituted a picker, like a wheel, a wheel of chance, a wheel of death, if you will, right? And
Wheel of Horror.
I felt that was low hanging fruit. I wanted to go a little bit more extreme.
Okay.
I mean, by definition, it's a wheel of horror. But I don't know. Wheel of Alpine murder, and at least in this case, it was. So the wheel, the chance, the fates chose classic, and Neri's classic of choice was The Shining. Now, Daniel, do you know how many times you've seen The Shining?
I do not know how many times I've seen The Shining. It is a lot. Like all things considered, for a movie that's 2.5 hours long, I'd probably say it's between 12 and 15 times.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it quite that many times, but I've seen it quite a few times. And this time, I started looking out for stuff that I hadn't really looked out for before, because I had seen a documentary fairly recently called Room 237.
Yes, sir. I love that documentary.
Yeah, and a lot of
I
the
wish
stuff.
you would have told me about it. I really wanted. I was like trying to look for stuff after I finished the movie today. It's for the first
Oh man,
I watched it for the first time today.
Oh yeah, Neri, you know how many times you've seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it exactly once. And I wanted to like do more research on it because there was a lot of questions. So I wanted to do like more. I watched the making of things on, and those were not helpful. So it was like a bullshit, like handheld camera of like how they got specific shots. That's not making of, but whatever. Okay, I wanted more...
You want to dive into like the real nitty gritty.
Well, like I wanted to like dive into like the like I guess that's not a thing that they used to do in the 70s, right? This movie came out in 1980, so filming in 1979 presumably. And that's not really, I guess that's not a thing that they used to do, like as far as like there were no DVDs, so there wasn't to make DVD specials. There were no like Nowadays, you make a movie and they're gonna have like making of or how they put
Right.
the movie together, and they're gonna talk about the producer's journey and all this. But I wanted that kind of. But
Well, and the fact that that doesn't exist is why the documentary Room 237 does exist, because all of that is left to speculation.
because all we got was Jack Nicholson brushing his teeth. So
He brushed the hell out of his teeth, though.
every day, every day.
I had marked that off my list of talking points.
You're supposed to.
No, but and did you see that? Did you see what I'm talking about? The behind the scenes from the, I mean, I want to say DVD, but we have a digital version of it on iTunes, and the making of behind the scenes is literally, he says he brushes his teeth every time he goes out to make a scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So every time he goes to shoot a scene, he brushes his teeth ahead of time, and then he makes a joke about like they're never
polite of him.
They're never gonna say that I have bad breath, or like something. He makes a joke about it, but.
Well, I think it was Clark Gable back in the 30s and 40s and so on. He had I think it was gingivitis or something like that, and so maybe it was, I don't know, but he had this horrible, terrible breath, and everyone who had to do a scene with him said that it was just absolutely terrible.
A strict diet of vodka, coffee, and cigarettes will do that to you.
Breakfast of champions.
Frankly, darling, I don't give a damn
about my breath.
About my breath, yeah.
So, as we've done with all the other picks, I want to kind of gauge how we all think of this movie. This movie, very similarly to Rosemary's Baby, is widely considered one of the greatest horror movies of all time. I mean, you throw a dart at Stanley Kubrick's film catalog, and you hit something that people refer to as a masterpiece. So,
or you hit a nipple if you just happen to nail it right on Eyes Wide Shut.
I mean,
that's true. There's a lot of nipples there.
In all fairness, he made like 7 movies. It wasn't like he had 75 movies and they're all
yeah, but for all of them to hit, I mean, at that point, when one misses, you're talking about a high percentage that ain't that good, So, this is, arguably cited as one of the most influential horror movies of all time. Do you think this reputation is deserved?
Who are you asking for?
Well, we usually start with you, Neri.
I think you should skip me on this one. I think you should go with. I think you should start with Dare.
All right, so we'll have a sandwich of ideas going on here.
I honestly I do. This is a movie that one of the reasons I've seen it so many times is it took me a little while to come to grips with this movie. The couple of gripes that I do have that I'll get to as we go on. A couple of things that I didn't like about it initially. A couple of things I still don't like. But as far as a lot of the things they do with tension building and just underselling everything, right? We talked about, it's a movie where not a lot happens, and yet you still manage to be tense and scared the whole time. I see a lot of people listed as like the greatest horror movie of all time. I disagree with that. Mm-hmm. But I think that in the grand pantheon of horror films, it is definitely a top tier movie.
Okay, Larry?
Yeah, I miss Rosemary's Baby. This movie is one of the most again. I'm watching it for the very first time in 2021. So I'm watching it. I'm trying very hard to look at it from the perspective of like, 30, 40 years ago and stuff like that. And I keep saying 30 for some reason, but I was born in 81. I'm like, nope, not 30 anymore. But honestly, this might be one of the most overrated movies I've ever seen in my life. It just didn't scare me. I was scared when I was texting you guys. I'm like, oh shit, this is really scary. I noticed immediately, and something we'll talk about later on. I know from the show notes. But the best part, and the reason why I was tense in the beginning of the movie was that score.
Yeah.
And then after that, in the scenes where the score wasn't there, I was like, this is not scary. This is not a horror movie. I don't understand why it's classified as a horror movie. Um, there's horror elements of course, but yeah, I found this movie. It's confusing. I found it. I was like, what the fuck does this mean? What does that mean? They don't explain. There's a lot of like scenes that just pop up and you go, wait, what the fuck is that? Like, what is this ballroom full of skeletons? Like, I don't get what's happening. Why is she able to see this? I'm sorry, did she just interrupt a furry convention? Like a furry convention? Like, is there two guys blowing each other in furry costumes?
Yes.
What's the deal with that? Nothing. It's like it's in there for no fucking reason other than to be like, Stanley Kubrick fucking found the furry part. Like, I don't understand. So there's a lot to be. I think the acting is very well done. I'll leave it at that. I don't think it.
Okay.
I don't think this movie garners a reputation that that it has. I don't think it's warranted. But I know that I'm on a lonely island there, and that's fine.
I don't think you're in an island all on your own. I think Stanley Kubrick is one of those guys where you either love his work or you hate his work. There's no middle ground when it comes to Kubrick. And
yes,
and
but I don't
anyone
sorry.
anyone who claims that they understand Kubrick is also a liar.
Right.
Which is why his movies sort of like beg to be rewatched over and over and over again and analyzed and overanalyzed, and you look at them the way you would look at a painting in a museum.
Look, I like there are Stanley Kubrick movies that I really enjoy. Full Metal Jacket. You know what I mean? There's like there's some Stanley Kubrick movies that I really really enjoy, and I'm not saying I did. I'm not even saying I didn't enjoy this movie. I'm just saying it wasn't the hype of like, you know, one of the scariest movies of all time, and you know, one of the like, it's like we talked about before. It's highly noted as one of the best among a lot of people, one of the best horror movies of all time, and I don't see it.
You know, you
Rosemary's Baby did, like what you were talking about, the tension building, and that, like Rosemary's Baby did that to me, and I want to go ahead and change my ranking, my voting for Rosemary's Baby, and go with 4 stars or 4 milk.
Oh wow,
okay.
We've never had this before.
Yeah.
Okay.
So watching this movie made me appreciate Rosemary's Baby. That I'm like, you know what? I was too harsh.
You know, you
I was
called
too
it
harsh.
you called a lonely island, but you know somebody that's on that island with you is Stephen King.
Oh, okay.
For obvious reasons,
right?
And I have kind of like a mixed feelings about Stephen King. He is to me one of the great storytellers. However, I don't know that his execution is great. I think that he tries to do so much, and there's so much, like there's no one to tame Stephen King.
Yeah, like
and say, okay, hang on a second, pull this back. Let's focus on these couple aspects right here, and what you've got is a nice tight horror story, which is why I think Carrie is his best work. His best work. Not the best movie.
Are we talking about like just a horror aspect? Because Shawshank and that's pretty balls on amazing.
Okay, all right, okay,
but yeah, horror.
Okay,
yeah, okay,
yeah.
Right.
You know, there's he tends to introduce so many like weird elements that then later, what did it do for the story?
Yeah, like by the 6th and 7th of the Dark Tower, it went from like a novella to, I mean, it's this. I'm reading The Stand again,
right? So, and the same thing with It. You know, It is one of those books where I think there's so much in it that doesn't need to be in it. What you've got is a great story with a lot of stuff, and I think that these like visionary movie makers like Brian De Palma, like Stanley Kubrick, come around and turn these stories into, even if they bastardize them, they cannibalize that script into something else. They're exploring something that both is and isn't what King intended. So when your work becomes something other than what you intended, I understand why you feel that way.
I wonder, does it? Do you? I don't know, because does anybody know what Stephen King's thoughts are on the scene from Ready Player One? Because that scene scared the fuck out of me, and I'm watching Ready Player One, so I'm curious to know if Stephen King, who was apparently, I'm just learning now, not a fan of what Kubrick did, was he also not a fan of what Spielberg did, or was he like, oh, finally, this is what I meant? Because there's a stark difference between
Yeah,
what Spielberg did just in that one scene, and again, taken out of context, whatever, but within the movie itself, I felt that was very different. Like there was,
I've
I'm like, I would be excited to watch a remake of The Shining directed by Steven Spielberg.
There's a miniseries with Steven Weber. It's pretty good.
Well, just because it's a Steven is what you're saying. Just I don't have a Spielberg for you, but I have a Weber.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I got a Steven Weber for you. That's you want a Stephen King? Best I can do is Steven Weber. Sorry.
What's up,
I
Andy?
have
Andy's watching.
Andy's back in as usual. So thank you, man. He says this movie is drive-by pure insanity, and all the fucked up scenes are done amazingly well by Kubrick to try to get the audience into the psychological makeup of a madman. And then he also says King's best book adaptation is Shawshank Redemption. I can't necessarily disagree with that.
Green Mile is also really good.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that when it comes to King on film, one of the things that I think gets closest to what he wanted to see on film is, and forget Maximum Overdrive.
Wow.
that's just that's an that's an abortion on film.
He says it though. He hates
Yeah.
that movie. He said that movie was basically a cocaine driven production where he was like high on coke the whole fucking time.
Yeah. If anyone has ever seen Creep Show, which was directed by George Romero and was written by Romero and Stephen King as kind of a throwback to those old 1950s and 60s horror comics that they both loved so much, that is very much a Stephen King, like a product of King's mind, and he actually stars in one of the segments of it, and it's pretty cool. So to get back to The Shining, I love this movie, and it was one that took time for me to get to, but just like pretty much all of Kubrick's movies, it took time for me to appreciate it. There was something that drew me to it. I wasn't sure if I liked it, but there was a desire to keep going back to it. And the more I watched it, the more confused I became about certain things, the more other things seemed to make more sense to me. And the more it became something that I felt I needed to continue watching.
Can I ask you a question, Dave?
Yeah.
Because you're a big fan of like classic movies in general,
Mhm.
right? Like all, and there's a lot of movies that are like classified as iconic or classic or like, oh, whatever. Is there any movie that we are supposed to like, quote unquote, that you don't like?
Gone with the Wind.
Okay.
I think it's
'Cause
about.
I know that you and I had, well, I have more of a hate for that movie than you do, but yeah, but you were like, it's bad, but it's like,
Yeah, I don't hate Gone with the Wind, but I
oh,
think its status as like one of the greatest movies of all time is not deserved. I think it's about 2 hours too long, and
I think it's like 4 hours too long. But the movie's only 3 hours and 30 minutes. I know. No, but
all
I
that
was,
time I spent just staring into the void when it was done, I can never have that back either.
my God. But no, I'm curious to know, because I'm curious to see, because I know that I'm trying to get into the psyche of somebody watching this movie, not liking it, and going like, I gotta watch it again. and I'm trying to see if it's one of those things where like, no, I have to like it because everybody says I like it, and we're doing this all subconsciously. This is never a conscious decision.
Right.
Nobody's that much of a fucking pretentious douche to be like, no, I'm supposed to like this, so let me go watch it again.
Well, like,
I'm just
remember.
saying, I'm wondering if that's what's happening.
Remember on Geekmore when we did survival movies and I mentioned Children of Men, and you listened to me talk about it and you're like, I hated that movie, but I need to give it another shot. That's what happened to me with The Shining. It wasn't necessarily like that it was just like I was supposed to like it, so I watched it until I forced myself to. It was just like people would talk about it and I was like, I didn't get that. Like that's not what I got from it. So it wasn't about like fulfilling this need to like it as a classic. It was about coming to terms with what it was and what it was trying to do and appreciating that.
I remember texting Jeff at one point while I was watching it, and I said, I'm watching for the first time watching The Shining. And I said, I'm really confused as to what's going on right now, but I'm assuming it's going to get cleared up later on. And he goes, yeah. He said, yeah. Okay. His words were, yeah, okay. Like, all right. Like, I was like, I don't know what that means, but he did. But
it's kind of something, and this is one of the reasons why I rank Stanley Kubrick so high on my list of directors, even though, like you said, Neri, I think he directed a total of like 12 movies in his entire career, which was a considerable career. I mean, he's started directing in the 50s, I think. So there's something about his movies where even when you don't understand, when you're utterly confused, at least to me, there's a sense that there's something I'm not quite getting, but it's there. There's subtext. There's symbolism I'm not getting. I think he approaches film as an artist, as opposed to a filmmaker. And I think a lot of that goes back to the fact that he got his start as a photographer. He was a big time photographer in New York in the 50s, and people were kind of like a lot of these film studios were trying to get him to come in and make these movies, and he started off making anti-war movies in the late 50s.
No, he's anti-war.
You want to talk about that? Because I know that's a section coming up. Do you want to get into that now? The fact that he's like the cinematography, the photography of it, because
you know what, we can get to that. Yeah, we can skip ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just we rolled into it quite nicely.
Yeah, I think that felt natural there. Andy says, "Did you like Dr. Sleep?" I absolutely loved Dr. Sleep.
I adored Dr. Sleep. I thought it was incredible.
I get to it.
Neri, I think you would really like.
Oh no, I didn't want to watch it because I didn't want to, because I knew the review was today, that this podcast was today, and I didn't want to give my review of one movie with that. I guess tainted is the wrong word, but I didn't want it to bleed into like, you know what I mean. So I wanted to give my true opinion about this movie, but I wanted to watch it. It's actually on my list of picker when we do the picker review. It's in one of the categories. It's in there, but I haven't done it yet. Bert would like it more than The Shining. I'm sure Bert would.
I think I think you're Bert.
No, it's Bert.
Is that an autocorrect?
Ernie hated it, but Bert finds it.
Oh yeah, Bert and Neri. That's right. I remember that spinoff.
Yeah, Bert and Neri. The two homosexual puppets on Sesame Street. Bert and Neri. I'm sure I would. Like I guess whatever. I'm just. I like the cinematography of this. I like the big sweeping shots. Like that opening sequence was very, very daunting. It's might be my favorite part of the movie, and that's not a diss on the rest of the movie. That's really.
No, it's gorgeous.
It's an impressive, gorgeous. The mountains, and it's all one shot, or at least it feels like one shot. If it's not one shot, God bless him. I don't know how he did that in the fucking 70s, 79. I'm assuming, but it was gorgeous, and that music, fuck, dude. It was perfect. It was perfect, and a lot of these shots, I feel like that. I didn't know that about Stanley Kubrick until you told us, but I feel like I feel like from this movie alone, like, because again, there's other movies that I like of his, but I feel like he was a better photographer than he was a filmmaker. Because the stories that he was telling with just the pictures, just the scenery was beautiful. But then there's some things that he did that I was like, I don't get what he's doing.
He uses a lot of slow dissolves in that opening,
Mhm.
which almost make it seem like it's one shot because one is kind of morphing into the other.
Mhm.
And slow dissolves are usually only like
And
a frame.
Spaceballs.
Uh, yeah, they're only a couple of frames, but he kind of really stretches that out so that it lasts for like 10 frames, and it gives you this really weird sensation when you're watching it.
Well, and it starts so well with that. With that being said, it makes even the scenery and this trip through the mountains feel weird, which lends itself to the rest of the movie, where a huge part of this movie is the fact that you're never comfortable with the overlook, and not just in the fact that it's haunted and it's alive or whatever. You're never comfortable with the overlook because every time you think you have a grasp of where you are in the overlook in correlation to something else, you're not. When you watch this, it's you get this feeling that the overlook is always one step ahead, and part of what it does to keep you on your toes is that it is constantly changing, and it's minor, it's small, but nothing is ever quite where it seems to be, which is one of the areas where I think that I didn't, when I was younger and I watched it, I didn't notice that. And now when I watch it, I'm looking at these things and I'm like, that wait, like when Danny's on the big wheel and he's taking some turns, like, okay, yeah, I know where he is, and then all of a sudden he turns and I'm like, wait, that hallway shouldn't
But how
be
did
there.
he get there?
Right,
Yeah.
like that hallway should not be there. He shouldn't have been able to make two lefts and be there. Like that should be a different part of the hotel. The hedge maze. When you see the picture of the hedge maze that's on the front, it does not look anything like the overhead shot of the hedge maze. So that leaves you wondering, like, is the hedge maze and the overlook, are these things that are changing so that well, one, in the context of the movie, they're always changing so that you're never comfortable because it's a living, breathing thing. But as from the directorial standpoint, he does those things and it leaves you on edge because you're never allowed to be comfortable. You're never allowed to feel familiar with the overlook. Every time you reach that point, something changes. And that's something that the tone is very much set for, that in those weird slow dissolves that make you even uncomfortable with just beautiful mountain scenery. It feels awkward. You can't put your finger on just why it feels awkward, but it feels like something is just this much off.
One of those things, but there's two particular instances where I couldn't quite put my finger on it the first time I saw it, and but it did have that sort of like, okay, something's off. The first thing is in Ullman's office,
The impossible window.
The impossible window, right? There's this bright window, right, with some trees or bushes or whatever it is just behind it, right, and the sunlight is so blinding, right, except that when you look at the layout of the hotel, it's an elevator shaft that should
Yes.
be right behind it. So how is there this window with all this light and this foliage behind it, right? The one that to me I always was like, okay, that shouldn't be happening, and I caught it the very first time I saw it, was the conversation that Jack has with Grady in the bathroom. Grady spills the drink on him, right? And in the gold room. And then they walk towards the bathroom. You see the way that they open the door to the bathroom and the way that they turn into the bathroom. And then there's another cut so that you're watching from the inside of the bathroom and you see them round the corner and come in. The way that all of that action takes place, because it's very carefully choreographed, they should be standing back in the gold room.
Yes.
It's impossible for them to be anywhere else other than in the gold room. So they've made this like big loop around, except that now they're inhabiting the space of this bathroom. So nothing, it's like
God damn it! Now I'm gonna go watch this shit.
Yeah,
Again.
see, and this is what I'm talking about, because when
Yeah.
I first watched it, I was like, I don't get it. But then when people start pointing these things out to me and you
Yeah,
start
but it's not
noticing,
gonna
it
make the
becomes
movie
more
better.
unnerving.
That's not gonna make the movie better. It's gonna make it more interesting. It will make the movie interesting. Like, oh, okay, I didn't see that before, but it's not gonna change the plot or the lack of explanation as to what's happening. It's not gonna change that. I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just
No,
saying
fair enough.
I'm gonna go back and watch this to see what you're talking about. Like, oh, okay, I didn't catch that, but it's not gonna change my opinion of the movie. It's just gonna go like, oh, that's something that I didn't notice before. You know what I mean? It's like the equivalent of an Easter egg in a Marvel movie. It doesn't change the Marvel movie. It just changes like, oh, Captain America's shield is an Iron Man. That's cool. It doesn't mean that it's better. It just means like, oh, I caught that Easter egg.
Fair enough.
What I like that whole Grady part. It was very trippy. I enjoyed those scenes. I enjoyed the scenes with the bartender.
Lloyd.
Lloyd, and I love the fact that he put his head down. There was nothing to drink. There was nothing, no alcohol. We're told in the beginning of the movie there's not going to be any alcohol, and then he sees the bar completely empty, puts his head down, lifts back up, and there's Lloyd. There's a full bar, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, this guy's fucking going crazy. Like he's
Right.
already like imagining all this, and I found that all interesting. That was probably my favorite part of the movie. That like whole conversation, and then when he comes back and there's a party, and he goes, "Oh, I know you. You were in charge of the hotel." And he's like, "Yeah, I got a wife and 2 kids." He's like, but I wasn't like that. I
Yeah,
found
you were always the caretaker.
yeah, I found
Mhm.
that whole thing super interesting, and then it left me, and then it took me nowhere. It was like,
Well,
no
that's not
explanation.
exactly true, because when he tells him you've always been the caretaker,
Yeah,
and then the very last shot of the movie is of him in a picture from 1921.
right.
Um, there's this feeling that time, space, it doesn't work the way that we understand it to work in the Overlook.
Well, I mean, he said it. He said it to his wife. He was like, "I felt like the first time I came here, every time I took a turn, I knew exactly what was going to be around that corner." Like
Mhm.
all of that, I find fascinating, but it doesn't give an explanation. And I joked with Jeff about like I like the fact that in the 80s, everything could be in the 70s and 80s, everything could be explained away with built on an Indian burial ground. Like, oh, like it's one of those like, all right, like white people were so like scared of of Native Americans that they were like, Indian burial ground, you don't want to put that. That's crazy.
Well,
Your TV and take your babies.
that is one of the major themes. If you read what a lot of what has been written by film critics and scholars and stuff like that about this movie, the genocide of Native Americans is one of the major themes throughout. Um, Going back to like almost the very beginning of the movie, when uh, what's his name? Scatman Carruthers. What's his character's name?
Oh shit! I knew it until you asked.
I
What's
think it was Willie.
Dick Halloran? Um, Willie.
Groundskeeper Willie.
You've got the shit in.
You got the shit in. You want to get sued, do you? That's what I kept thinking about when I saw him coming. I was like, he's got the shit in.
Andy says, as Danny's riding his big wheel, the sound the big wheel makes from the wood to carpet is just as hypnotizing as following the turns that he makes in the hallways.
Yes.
I caught
Yeah.
that too. I did catch that too. I liked. I was like, oh, I was thinking, how did they make that? They had to put that in post? Like I'm thinking, I'm already thinking, but it was, yeah, I caught that. It was
Those from a filmmaking standpoint, so not talking like critical analysis or anything like that. The Handycam had just been invented, and I mean just been invented. And Kubrick knew the guy who had invented the Steadicam system, so he actually asked that guy to operate Steadicam. So those shots where you've got this like seamless following of Danny's big wheel or in the maze, right? When we first see Danny and Wendy going through the maze, and they cross right through, you know, where they had been before, and there's no rail, you know, for, you know, or track for this this camera rig. People were like going bonkers, like, how did they do this shot, right?
Had they never seen Rocky? That's what the Steadicam was first used in the movie Rocky. That's why he was able to run. And when they did the running in all the running scenes of his training, that guy was running with the Steadicam, and Stallone always says, I give him all the credit in the world, because he had to run sideways holding the camera, and he ran as fast as Stallone did regular. He ran sideways. He was able to, and then that's how they did that tracking thing, where there was no rails. It wasn't from a car. It wasn't from it was literally somebody, the guy that invented the Steadicam, running next to Stallone the entire time. And that's why when you see the steps, you don't see any. It doesn't do any steps with him. So I was impressed with the thing. I agree with you. The thing in The Shining, I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, but I didn't stop to think. Like, I'm not, thinking on a technical aspect, but those scenes were nice. I like there's a lot of things I like about this movie.
So I was saying with Dick and Danny at the very beginning of the movie, when he's first talking to him about The Shine, all right, about The Shining. There's a can of baking soda behind him, and the baking soda is of a brand called Calumet, which is what I think it was the Navajo Indians referred to as a peace pipe. And so there's this like symbolism there of like a peace treaty, right? There's this peace treaty between the family and the hotel. And the next time that we see those Calumet baking soda cans is in that like upside down shot of Jack when he's been trapped inside of the pantry.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, like big ones.
Big ones, yeah, but they're all turned in different ways, and you can't read Calumet perfectly anymore because that peace treaty's been broken, right? He's assaulted his family. He's trying to kill them now. So, like there's things like that, and there the blood from the elevators, right? Elevator shafts, you got to dig deep down into the foundation so that you can have space for these engines and these motors, right? And that's where the blood is coming up from. Right, if this is an Indian burial ground, right, that blood is coming from the bones, the where these Indians have been laid to rest, right? And that's
Native Americans,
American Indians,
American Indians,
American Indians, yeah.
Can I just say that the racism from the waiter really threw me off. Like,
it comes out of nowhere, doesn't it? It's like hard.
Nowhere. He's like the most like polite, like, you know what I mean? Not British, but like the most polite, like
he was British.
Yeah, classy. And all of a sudden he threw that hard ER in there, and I was like, whoa.
And Jack throws it right back at him too.
Yeah,
Jack is like,
Yeah, Jack is all too happy to join in. Like, finally, my people, I can see the ER around you. That's so great. It threw me for a hard left turn. Again, watching it 2021. I even though I'm a stand-up comedian, like there's still like some things that are like I see through PC glasses, and I was like, whoa. I was like, my dear good sir. I would have none of that talk here. I was like, holy shit, you threw me off, man.
Do you know who that guy is?
Racist?
Well, yes. I didn't say what that guy is.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
He's Sergeant Bloombert from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Oh, I haven't seen that movie. God, I mean,
yeah, and every time I watch it, I'm like, Captain Bloombert, saw you.
Is Captain Bloomberg a Nazi?
You'd think so.
Maybe he's all too familiar. Maybe he's all too comfortable with these roles, man.
Yeah. One thing while we're talking directing and acting and just this general thing, the one thing about this movie that's been a gripe for me since the very first time I saw it, and watching it now again is, and will always forever be a gripe I have, is that Shelley Duvall is so awful as an actress that apparently Jack Nicholson decided he needed to whatever, like if she was only acting like 40%, then he had to act 160%. Right. So it's like there's this odd balance struck between him like way overacting, like just way too much. Like there are just scenes where I get it. It's supposed to be delving into the mind of a madman. But there are just scenes where it's like, dude, you're going too hard. Like even for Jack Nicholson, like you're going too hard. But then
agree. I thought I was like, oh, okay. Like it was one of those. I liked the over the top. In fact, I didn't even see it as over the top. It drove the point home to me that he was losing his.
But it starts
with Neri there.
I feel like it starts real early, but then the contrast is Shelley Duvall running through the hallways like this. Yeah. Oh my God! Like this right here, as she's like running.
Okay, so I thought about this, right?
Holding the knife is so bad.
She was holding the bat. It was like I was just like,
dude, I laugh so hard every time she swings that bat.
But here's the thing so I was thinking to myself the same thing. I was like, the way she's running, the way she's holding the bat, and then I thought to myself, Neri, she is a 1970s housewife. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? In this day and age, there were no fit chicks. There was no Sarah Connor. There were no like women back then were not allowed to know how to swing a bat. They were not allowed, you know what I mean? It wasn't like like nowadays I feel as if that movie was made nowadays, you would have a woman who's in shape, who knows how to run, you know what I mean? I feel as if that I thought about this. I saw her running, I laughed. I saw her swing the bat. I was like, that doesn't even look like it would hurt. The way she swung the knife, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? But then I thought to myself, this is a woman who's never needed to do any of those things. Like, why would she know how to run? Why would she know how to fucking swing a baseball bat? Like, why would she know, like, all right, you put the right over the left and put it over your shoulder, lift your elbow up? She wouldn't know any of that shit. Like, that's not something that she would know.
Maybe that's what it is, but man, it
does look ridiculous.
It's always just driven me crazy. Like, like this, I think that one of the things that to sing the praises to Stanley Kubrick in this movie is it's like it's almost like what's the movie with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy, Trading Places, right? Like it's almost like the thing where like Stanley Kubrick made like a $2 bet with somebody where he's like, watch me get this guy who's known to do way too much when he acts and pair him with this chick that nobody knows anything about and I don't think has even heard of acting, and I'm going to make a goddamn masterpiece.
You know what
I gotta disagree, man. I mean,
I think his bet was more like, I bet you I can make her swing a bat and her look stupid as fuck. Ready? Because as a director, you could just take her aside and be like, this is the way you swing a bat. But he did it. He fucking did it. He let her ride, man. He like and he was like, no, keep doing that. Go ahead, keep rolling. Let's keep rolling.
and it wasn't just that. He had her redo that scene over 100 times.
Yeah. I knew about that. There was like, this movie is notorious. Shelley has said multiple times, I can't fucking know her. She has said, the fact that I've never seen this movie, and I know that she was put through fucking hell at the filming.
She was treated terribly.
Yeah, she was treated terribly. Like that would not fly in 2021.
No.
And so she was treated terribly, and she that's like it's such a huge part of the film as far as the history of the movie because everybody knows about it. Mm-hmm. I did feel bad for her because I was like, man, she must have fucking hated it because I knew that. Like I knew I didn't know it was over 100 times, but I was like, I remember reading something about
and I'm sure that he used one of those later takes where she's just like exhausted physically, emotionally, psychologically, and I personally think that comes out in her performance where she does do a good job of portraying this like deferential, this demure woman, to a man who is abusive. We know that he's abusive to Danny. And is more than likely abusive to her. I mean, fuck, he tries to kill her, right? But up until
hurt her, Dave.
He's not gonna hurt her.
He just wants to bash her fucking brains in, right? I think that she does a really good job. If the only other movie I think I've seen her in is Popeye, and Olive Oil is a totally different character, right? So say whatever you want about Popeye, which I love, by the way, but she plays Olive Oil very differently than she does Wendy Torrance.
I'm putting Popeye on my picker wheel because it's a fucking nightmare.
Horror movie. That's a nightmare, dude. I tried watching it like 2 years ago when fucking Dave wouldn't stop talking about it, and I went back and I put it up. And me and Vanessa, we couldn't get through 15 minutes. It was fucking horrible. Dave still says by it. Dave still like he'll die in the hill, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'll die on that hill alone. Yeah. I'm dying on that hill alone.
Not even Robin Williams or Shelley Duvall would fucking die. Let's see what else Shelley did. Shelley, she did Popeye. She did yeah, okay.
Yeah,
well,
okay.
I got it. All right.
Yeah, you got it. You are she did a bunch of stuff. She hasn't done anything. I'm pretty sure she's retired now. She's 72. Yeah. She hasn't done anything since 2002, but even then it was not. This is all BC work. This is not. Yeah. She was in an episode of Frasier.
She was in a Steve Martin movie?
Yeah, Andrew says she was also in that Steve Martin movie that I can't remember.
And she was in Suburban Commando.
And Andrew says Popeye was god awful. You are awarded no points, Dave, and we're all stupider for hearing it.
Right. Put that comment up one more time. It's gonna be
thanks, Andrew. Yeah, here we go. That's fine. I know.
It's gonna be this is gonna be the ad for the for the next episode.
I think Andy found it. It was so
yeah, when he plays Cyrano de Bergerac. That's right. Roxanne is the name of that movie. And it's like a modern take on Cyrano de Bergerac. She was in
Time Bandits.
Time Bandits. That's the one I just remembered. She was in Time Bandits. She was in Time Bandits.
Yeah.
There we go. So since we're on the topic of Jack being abusive, there was one thing which I had never caught before, and the only way to catch this is if you go frame by frame and stop it. This is something that if you watch Room 237, they go into. The scene where Jack has arrived with his family, and it's his first day on the job. And Ullman comes over to like shake his hand and start walking him around the property. He's reading a magazine, right? And you can see what the magazine is if you stop at the exact moment. But it's a Playgirl magazine. And on the cover of this Playgirl magazine,
Jack is reading the Playgirl magazine.
I see you, Jack.
Yeah, Jack's reading Playgirl. On the cover of this Playgirl magazine is an article
big old dick
on incest. So there's amongst the critics who have really gone into this movie, there's this belief that it's possible that Jack not only abused Danny physically but also sexually.
That's a big leap.
It is a big leap. However, if you know the way Kubrick works, that's the sort
fair.
of thing that he would have been like, oh, let's put that in there.
Yeah, but that's that's like saying just because you're gay, you automatically fuck kids.
No,
like
but I mean,
he specifically chose a Playgirl
with a cover story about incest.
With a cover story about incest.
But even that means that so not only you're saying that just because you're gay or just because you're bisexual, whichever way you want to say it, then you like incest. And if you're bisexual and you like incest, because that could be your cousin, that could be your brother, you're automatically taking the leap that it's going to be a child, your child. So like I'm just saying that's a leap. I'm not saying it's impossible.
It is. It is. But
it's also possible that Kubrick just thought it would be funny to make Jack Nicholson sit in that lobby and look at dicks.
Right. Well,
look what he did to Shelley Duvall was swinging a baseball. He meant it, man. This guy.
He did also play tricks like that with the camera and the scenery. The first time the moment that they shake hands, there's a paper tray on the desk that Ullman comes right up next to, and it turns into a boner.
Yes,
it looks like a boner coming right out of his pants.
Hey.
And these are the sorts of little visual gags that he would do. He did apparently meet with like ad men right before he did this movie to get into sort of like subliminal messaging and like to take symbolism to a deeper level than he had before. So take that for what it's worth.
Neri's just processing.
I'm just thinking to myself, he met with madmen, so clearly Jack was fucking a kid. Like, what? Like that was just like, I know that's not what you're saying, but in my mind, I'm just thinking, like, that's still a leap. My question to you is this: so when Shirley turns the corner and she sees groundskeeper Willie on the floor, right, and he's dead, is it just me? Did he have his arm chopped off in that?
No.
Like,
No, there's just like a lot more blood, but I don't.
It's just the angle or whatever that I'm looking at, because when he was laying on the floor, it looked like his left arm was chopped off from that angle. And I had to rewind it and be like, wait, but we just saw the one stab to the chest. We didn't see the arm. So I was just asking if anybody knew about that. But all right.
I've never seen it as his hand getting chopped off. The other really cool thing to do with like symbolism and like inconsistencies there, even though this doesn't take place in the actual hotel, but before we see Danny get a look at the overlook with the blood coming out, right, that he's brushing his teeth in the bathroom, the camera is kind of panning in from his bedroom, and it passes his bedroom door. There's a bunch of stickers on his bedroom door, one of which is a sticker of Dopey from the Seven Dwarfs. And when the next time we see that door, which is when his mom and the doctor are leaving, the Dopey sticker is gone. It's not there anymore. And these are the sorts of like symbols that Kubrick would use to kind of get little points across to people, where he's like, okay, well, he did not know, right? Dopey, right? Not knowing a lot. He did not know what was to happen at the overlook, what to expect. And now he has seen, now he knows he's no longer Dopey.
Man, I would love if Kubrick was still around. So I would love him to be like, no, it was just it was the set director fucked up and we just shot out our sequence. I would love that type of shit to happen. We'd be like, and I'm not saying that's the case. I would just love for all these people to go super deep into it. And he's like, no, we just fucked up. We just shot that out of order. And then the fucking kid in between takes put a fucking extra sticker on there. And then I didn't realize it until afterwards. Like, it's just like, this could, I don't know. That's all right. Dopey, I guess.
There are certain directors where I think, their continuity isn't really their thing, and you'll find a lot of mistakes in there. Kubrick is not one of those guys.
Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
That scene. I just go back to that scene in Gladiator where you see the fucking chariot hit the wall and you see the fucking CO2 tank. You're like, nobody saw this shit. There's a fucking giant CO2 tank that's clearly visible to the. All right, cool, man.
Yeah. So there's a lot in here. As far as directing, acting, cinematography, the set design, I think, is so fantastic, and kind of ties into that whole idea of this place really is haunted by the genocide. Of what the white man did to the Native American Indian.
Well, and the color schemes in places, like when you're talking about just the set design and how starkly different things will be, and it creates this mood change. When he walks into 237, that room looks like nothing else that we've seen in the Overlook. Then he pushes open and then he pushes open that bathroom door, and it's an even deeper green. It's like you're getting closer to the sickness that is at the heart of this hotel, and you're getting into something that's not like anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, you were saying something, and I had a thought, and it was a good one, and then I was like, oh, I'll let him finish, and then I forgot.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't think I wanted to see more of the hotel. Like we got to see something. You know what I mean? Like we're in the beginning, we're told that the hotel is a super huge thing, and we only saw certain. And I get it, budgetary, whatever. But it just seemed like we only saw 3 or 4 places. We saw the kitchen, we saw the ballroom, and then we saw their bedroom. And kind of it in the hallways, I guess, in between.
Yeah, the grand hall.
There were different hallways, right? The Colorado Lounge.
There we go.
That's one hell of a set, man.
Yeah. I'm really interested in knowing what happened. Like, I really would like to know what happened in that movie that I watched. Like, I'm really interested in knowing. I want to know about Lloyd, and I want to know about like what happened. I want to know. Like, I want to like that. That's I
Well,
want to know.
Dick
It's
kind of
very
says.
interesting.
Dick kind of says. Well, he doesn't kind of say. He comes right out and says that um, when bad things happen, they have a way of leaving something behind, and that a lot of things have happened at the Overlook, and not all of them have been good. So I think it's one of those things where, because it started out with a very dark history, right? Um, it has only continued, and this is maybe the Native Americans trying to get revenge, get back at the injustice. So this place is cursed.
Okay, but like, I mean, so was he at the party, and then he just stayed at the party, or did he die and then his soul reincarnated so that he had to live in this thing where he had to like go back to the Overbrook every lifetime? Like, how, like I'm
If you're asking me for my interpretation,
oh, I'm
I
asking anybody. I thought anybody would know. Apparently, nobody knows for sure. Is that
well,
what you're saying?
yeah, no one really knows for
Okay.
sure, and that's why I said that anyone who tells you, "Hey, I know what Stanley Kubrick was doing and exactly what he meant, and this is it," that person is selling you something.
And
Um,
like you're saying, is it a thing where this spirit, this shine that's left, is always has to return? That plays into the you've always been the caretaker. Maybe that there was a time when you looked like me,
But
like you
so
looked like me.
Andrew just asked a question now.
yeah, and it's the same question. This is not an uncommon question. Is the movie like a constant retelling of it, like a ghost residual? And I think that is kind of what it is that people are doomed to repeat history, right? And that is kind of what's going on, right? It's what happened with Grady is almost what happens with the Torrances. And when someone dies in the Overlook because of its bloody past, because of this, call it magic, call it mysticism, whatever you want.
Call it
You
fate,
then,
call it karma.
yeah, whatever you become, you become a part of its bloody history, and history, it's like Dick tells Danny, it's not real, right? It's like pages in a book. So it all just blends together, right? Especially for someone who doesn't know that history, right? um the other day my son asked me, he goes, "Hey, were the dinosaurs alive in the 1910s?" I'm like, "Kid, the dinosaurs were alive 65 million years ago." And he was like, "So not in the 1910s?" And I'm like, "No, not in the 1910s." And I've got a pretty smart kid, but it's the sort of thing where like time doesn't exactly make sense when you don't exactly when you don't know time, when you haven't studied these things, right? And so he becomes a part of this history that is all just pages in a book of the Overlook. At least that's the way that I've always interpreted the movie. I don't know if that makes any sense. Andrew says,
But
and seems
Andrew
like the
Harleman, just it's a different Andrew than we
Oh, it
have.
is a
uh,
different Andrew.
well, I call Andrew Chacon Andy and Andrew Harriman Andrew. Um, so Andrew says, and seems like the caretaker is aware and is constantly trying to change it, especially Danny. Interesting. Well, and especially if you've seen Doctor Sleep,
Dr. Sleep.
that kind of plays into it as well, without giving away
Do
any
they explain
spoilers.
more of what the shinin is in
Yes.
It's a bigger the Shining is actually a bigger part of Doctor Sleep than it is of The Shining.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then do they explain the fucking?
No, that's just Tony.
Okay.
Andy Chacon says, I've always wondered if there's a connection between 237 and 1408. Possibly. 1408 is another great one.
Put it on the wheel. All right.
Okay, so we've kind of touched upon a couple of these things here. So Neri, you said you didn't find it. This was going to be our second thing.
But like The Overlook, we're constantly changing and keeping you uncomfortable.
So the Shining is a horror movie. So a lot of different websites, magazines, whatever you want,
Publication.
Call this one of the scariest movies ever made. Do you think that do you think it's effective as a scary movie, as a horror movie?
Listen, man. The reason I'm on this podcast, I would like to think, is because I bring comedy to it, but realistically, I know it's because I'm a pussy and I get scared at things. Through the audience, and I have no problems in saying this. Like, this is there. I know there's like a thing that men have, stereotypically men don't like to acknowledge of their fears or whatever. I am afraid of horror movies work on me. Like, they work on me. I have nightmares. I have to watch them during the daytime if I do watch them. And I never would watch them if it was not for the fact that I'm doing a podcast with my friends. So, and then I like usually have to watch go to sleep watching Disney movies. You know what I mean? Like, they work on me. I'm the fucking prime target for horror movies because I'm the guy that gets scared. With that said, I could watch this shit at 3 o'clock in the morning. I could watch this shit at midnight and I'll be fine. The most daunting and the only scary thing about this movie is the score. And it was brilliant and it was amazing, but this movie is not scary at all whatsoever. Interesting, I give that. Interesting is like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, confusing, convoluted, but not scary. I don't think that. I mean, if it doesn't scare me, brother, I don't know who the fuck this scares, because I'm not only a car carrying member of the pussy organization. I am on the console, bro, of like just being scared of shit. Like, I'm scared as fuck. Rosemary's Baby had me scared at moments, and that's not, you know what I mean. Like, we talked about, some people find it more of a thriller than a horror movie, but this movie wasn't scary to me. So that's your answer.
I view this movie as a horror art piece, which you kind of you look at things from when you're looking at Stanley Kubrick movies. Like, that's the lens that you look through, and it was something that I came. That's one of the reasons I came to appreciate it when I got older, because I wasn't watching it.
The question is they say it's one of the scariest movies,
right? And that's what I was getting to. That's what I was getting to.
Okay.
And so when I talk about,
Mary likes his answers immediately.
No, I just like, because he was
and in very
off
truncated sentences.
Yeah, he was drifting off into this art piece thing, and I'm like, I'm not. But we're asking, is it scary?
Right. So what I'm saying is, when viewed through that lens, I said earlier, I think it deserves its place in the great horror movie pantheon. As far as being scary as a kid, yeah, like, there were parts of it that were scarier, right? And now it's unnerving, like you said. It's interesting. I love to watch it, but it's not one of the scarier ones. I will absolutely agree with you on that. Like, I can understand watching it and being scared, but as one that I've never understood the idea of calling this the scariest horror movie of all time, because while there are scares and while things are frightening, it's not that scary.
Right. I kind of have to agree. I think that this is a movie that is filled with horror atmosphere. I think it has an almost like modern Gothic feel to it. If you take the Overlook as Dracula's castle or something like that, the horror in those old Dracula and Frankenstein movies wasn't in the the action. It was in the atmosphere, and I think that that's something that that Kubrick did. He managed to instill fear, not because of what the characters were doing, but because of what was what the setting was, right? And this is actually something that I think recently we can all relate to a little more because of the COVID pandemic, being locked in our houses, right? How many of us have heard people say, "I can't take this," and I've got to
Yeah.
get out of my house. This idea that if you are unwell, that it being locked with your family is more than just being locked with your family, but it's being locked in with your demons, right?
Yes.
Um, I think that there's a lot of horror to be found in this movie, although it isn't on the surface. It's not horror in the way that, like, okay, so you were used for a satanic ritual and your baby is now the antichrist, or even someone is using a compact with the devil to make their town better than yours, or at the price of yours, to go back to Fear Street. This is a horror that not only invites you but begs you to go deeper, to look at what is going on beneath the surface. We've seen men wielding axes in horror movies before. It's nothing new. Why is this scary then? Is because of the subtext, I think.
So, what you're describing, Dave, I agree with all of it, but what you're describing is not horror. What you're describing is a thriller, a psychological thriller, to be exact.
Yeah, and I don't know that Stanley Kubrick ever called The Shining a horror movie.
'Cause that's what I would say. Like when,
Mhm.
like there are psychological thrillers. This is right up my alley. Remember, we talked about this off air previously for over 2 years. Every time it came down to me picking a movie, a horror movie, it turned out that most of the quote unquote horror movies that I like are more psychological thrillers, are categorized under more psychological thrillers. Whether or not you consider those still horror movie or not, that's every subjective. But what you're describing to me, like everything you just said, I completely agree with. Like you gotta go deeper. It's like one of those mental things. The example of COVID and the quarantining, I agree with all of that. I just except the fact that we have Zoom. But
Yeah.
that I get what you're saying. I just think that's not a horror movie to me. Is it scary? Is it tenseful? Yeah, it's suspenseful, but it's not scary. But I'm again, I don't
And
want to
you're
feel like I'm bashing the movie because I'm just like
No,
trying to.
I don't think you are. And you're not alone. When I told my wife Stephanie that you had picked The Shining, she told me, she was like, "Oh, this will finally be a movie that Neri will get through without being scared." She doesn't think that The Shining is a scary movie. And I think
Now I agree
to
with Stephanie. God.
to each his own. Andy Chacon says it's scary to me, like Jacob's Ladder is scary. Despite that, it's still a cinematic masterpiece.
The and maybe we'll do Jacob's Ladder at some point, but Jacob's Ladder is the idea of never knowing what's going on and just being uncomfortable, like to the next level. Tim, like I've never been able to see Tim Robbins the same since I saw Jacob's Ladder.
That's kind of I've actually never seen Jacob's Ladder.
I saw it as a kid and it terrified the fuck out of me, but I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't know the story. I just saw the imagery was
Watch it now. You won't know what you're watching. That's
I don't know what I'm watching now.
I'm just saying, like being
there
grown doesn't make Jacob's Ladder easier to understand.
By the way, there are some movies that as much as I love you guys, I'm not watching in this podcast ever. Like I'm just putting that out there. Like, you know what I mean? And I'll be more than happy to step away and let somebody else step in for that episode. Or hopefully when I'm on a ship, you guys, but I'm never watching Serpent in the Rainbow ever. Like that's
I was about to say Serpent in the Rainbow changed the way I see Bill Pullman.
never. I'm like I saw that movie like once or twice when I was a kid because my older brothers would watch it. And yeah. I have nightmares about the nightmares that I had then. So
Neri won't watch a Serbian
yeah,
film.
whenever you guys have a meeting and be like, hey, how can we slowly weed Neri off the podcast and just like have him not just keep picking Jacob's Ladder and fucking and then Serpent in the Rainbow, and then like, oh, why doesn't Neri come around anymore? That's why. You guys
Oh man. Okay, so we've kind of touched upon in some way or another. I mean, is it scary? Not in the conventional way. Does it scare you? Most of us said no. Andrew or Andy Chacon says, "Will Neri watch The Believers?"
I like the fact that he puts my name in caps now, just so that he doesn't get auto-corrected back to Bert.
To Bert.
Like, will Neri watch it? I don't know The Believers. I've never heard of it. So I guess I'll watch it.
I'm not sure what that is. So we talked about direction, cinematography, set design, acting. We talked about score a little bit. I really do think that this score is just unbelievable.
Yeah, that score is really good, man. I mean, you know, me, Dave, and I share a love, a passion for movie scores, and this score is legit.
Doing Geek More, listening to Geek More before I was on it, like you guys inspired me to start paying more attention to scores. And since I've been friends with y'all, I've spent a lot more time noticing the subtlety of score. You know, like I've always been, you know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I know score is the building of the music before the jump scare. You know, like that was my understanding of score. But you guys have really taught me to understand the like I said, just the subtlety of score and how absolutely important it is. And like you said, Neri, this movie, I mean, from the jump, you were like, oh, yo, fuck this.
Yeah,
like, you sent us the title card.
I said,
we're like, yo, fuck this
like,
movie.
I'm already scared of the title card. Fuck this movie. Like I thought I was gonna be like shitting my pants, and
that music, by the way, and this is something that Kubrick does often, where he will incorporate like previously written music into the score. Which he did very famously and effectively, I think, in 2001: A Space Odyssey. But that opening musical number is called Dies Irae, which is often played in the funeral requiem mass. So it opens with death music. So there's a reason why it like gets under your skin and just stays there and won't let go as you're like sweeping through this this mountainside. You feel almost like a ghost, you know, following this car. At least that's how I've always felt. You know, I didn't feel like I was along for a helicopter ride. I didn't feel
it wasn't a drone.
I didn't feel like a bird. I didn't feel like, you know, anything. It felt ghostly to me.
Robert in the Facebook posted a link that he says that if you watch the video, you'll see the movie differently. Unfortunately, we can't watch the video link at the moment through the program that we use to run it, so we have to take your word for it to watch it later, Robert. Just FYI. But there's a link. If you are listening to this on the audio version, go back to the Facebook page, and on the Facebook page that of this episode, look for the link that Robert Hernandez has posted. He's claiming that the video would change the way we look at the movie, or at least I'm sure he's talking to me. There. Sorry.
There's also a claim that if you watch the movie both forwards and backwards at the same time, it does kind of add
one with each eye.
Yeah. No, you can like overlay them. You have to do this with a projector. Like it has to be done with an old school, like a, you know, like a 35 millimeter or a, you know, a 70 millimeter projector or whatever. And wow, that was really creepy. I looked over and my son was standing right there and I had no idea he was there. So,
I just wish he would be like, hi.
Dave's not here now, Mr. Uyola.
so you can actually see images like overlay with each other perfectly, and it adds like some more context to the things that that you're seeing that previously you wouldn't have seen. One of the ones that struck out at me was like when the Grady twins are on the floor and they're all, bloody and, hacked to pieces. It overlays with Jack Torrance's face, and there's the markings of the blood on the wall kind of like drip down from his eyes, and like it's like so perfectly placed. It's like odd. It's really odd.
Look,
I
I
feel
know
like
I know that we're men who have multiple podcasts where we like spend time to do something and then spend an equal amount of time just talking about it. But some people have way too much fucking time on their hands.
Yeah, I would never have thought to do that. I
that's
will
what I'm saying.
never do it.
I was about to say, I'm like, I feel as if Stanley Kubrick is playing like the ultimate prank on us. Like he's really making motherfuckers like it'd be hilarious if he was just like, nah, I just wanted to see how fucking how deep people are willing to fucking search for a meaning that's not there. Like I really, and there's part of me that's also wondering, do we have to be on the drugs that Stanley was on in order to be on the same page? Like this, it feels like, you know what I mean? It's like when people, and I've had people tell me this, like, oh, bro, the thing with EDM music is you have to listen to it while you're on fucking drugs. And I'm like, what? That's how I have to listen. Like, I have to, like, no, you won't get it if you're not on drugs. I'm like, then I don't think that's a good, like, I'm like, you know what I mean? So I wonder if that's a thing, because this, he's been making movies since the 50s and went through the 60s and 70s where there was like drugs were fucking rampant. And like not that they're not now. I'm just saying, like, I wonder if he made movies where like this is
Well, and you're saying like you wish that he could be, that you could be, so you could be alive, so you could be like, no, I just want it. I thought it was weird, or I know that's
wonder if he's
yeah.
like what's his name? Fucking the guy that Jim Carrey played. God damn it.
Fire Marshal Bill. Andrew Kaufman.
I wonder if he's doing a Kaufman and he's just like, it was just funny to see all these.
Right.
Like to him, this is the ultimate joke to see people putting the movie on backwards and forwards. Like that to him is like, this is hilarious.
Well, it's like there are people who think that the reason Danny wears the Apollo 11 sweater is because part of this movie was Stanley Kubrick stating that he helped stage the moon landing on a soundstage, and we never went. I honestly, this is so 79. That's 10 years after the moon landing. 69. Apollo 11 was 1969.
I think it was 68.
68. So 10, 11 years. Afterwards, I like to think that he just knew that people thought that he might have been a part of that, and that he was like, "Oh, watch these fuckers," and like, and he's like, "Yeah, Apollo 11 sweater, let's go."
It was 69. You're right. It was 69. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
and then we're gonna put a dopey sticker on the door and fuck everybody up. Like, it's like what? Like, I would love for him to be like, we're just gonna fuck everybody up with a dopey sticker. Like that's all it takes. And these but he's one of those guys. He's one of those super artistic filmmakers where, like, what I call artsy fartsy. And it's one of those guys where anything he makes gets overly examined and it's going to be examined. And, I would love for that to be the case.
There was a time when his movies were more leaning towards movie than art. There's one in particular that comes to mind, which I actually think you would really like, Neri, called The Killing, which is a heist movie, and you can definitely see the influence of that movie on like Reservoir Dogs and the the really famous heist movies that followed. I mean, there's no denying, I think, the guy's a genius. Whether you're looking at his cinematography, his filmmaking skills, or his ability to understand that people overanalyze things, and troll them.
Where's the shift there? Is it like around Lolita, Doctor Strangelove? Is that like where the shift started to be made into these movies that were more than just a movie?
I think the subject matter of Lolita kind of prompted that.
Right.
And then certainly by the time you get to A Clockwork Orange, you're getting to that, and then you have 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is my personal favorite. To me, that movie is it is moving art.
Okay, so so 2001: A Space Odyssey, would that not be as much a horror movie as this one?
There are certain elements of horror in it. Yeah, I wouldn't deny that. I
I
wouldn't
think
call it as
everything.
much of a horror movie as this. I
I
would say
think.
that this is a horror movie,
I think
whereas 2001 is a sci-fi film with elements of horror.
Okay. Well, so I think both of them are psychological thrillers, and the only difference between The Shining and 2001: Space Odyssey is the amount of blood in the movie. I think that's the only difference.
Okay.
Fair.
Because they're both psychological thrillers. They're both like, what
Yeah.
would man do in these situations? What happens to a man's mind? Yeah, they all explore those themes.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So, all right.
And that's kind of the beauty of his movies, I think, is that it's more than just popcorn fare. You're not just going to sit back and munch on some popcorn and then casually talk about what your favorite scene in the movie was. His movies do invite you to sit down and actually think about them and discuss them the way that we're doing now. We've basically gone off script for an hour and 20 minutes, just leading naturally from one thing to the next. And I think that if that wasn't his intention, I don't know what was.
I'm pretty sure he intended people to talk about this on a podcast when he made this movie. He's like, I'm making this movie so people could talk about it on a podcast. That's what I mean. Why else would I make a film? All right. So what's the rating system?
Are we gonna do big wheels, dopey stickers? You want to do missing dopey stickers?
The rating system is going to be missing dopey, like how
missing dopey stickers. I like it.
How about bloody elevators?
Okay, you could do an axe, but whatever, or snow cat. How many snow cats would you give it? I don't know, whichever one you want, but yeah.
How many bloody dick hollerins?
Bloody dick. Bloody dick in this movie.
Frozen hedge mazes.
Yeah. Can I be honest with you? That scene of him frozen was ruined by that gif of him being frozen. I get it. That's a super famous gif, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I've seen this before. Like I hate the fact that he cut to it too quickly. I think in a man who apparently makes long dissolves, he just cut to it real quick. He didn't do any time lapse of like from night to morning. Then it was a real quick cut, and I was like, okay, lazy.
I think missing dopey stickers is the funniest one, honestly.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Neri, how many missing dopey stickers do you give this out of 5?
I give this 3 missing dopey stickers.
That is more than I thought. I
gotta be honest with you, it's only that high. I don't want to get. It's only that high because I don't want to get shitted on again because I gave 3 to Rosemary's Baby, which I now changed and corrected to 4. I thought about the Rosemary's Baby one for the listener. If you had to know what I'm talking about, I had originally given 3 to Rosemary's Baby.
3.5.
Did I 3.5?
Yeah.
And it was only strictly because of the very last shot of that film. And then I thought about it and I was like, you're taking away a 1.5 for one fucking shot? Jesus Christ. Like, that's very. And so I've changed my mind in 4. I think 4 is Rosemary's Baby. Yeah, no, there's a lot of things I like about this movie. There's a lot of things. I'm very interested in I'm interested in what's not shown. I'm interested in what the story is about the party. Like she walked into a room full of skeletons. I'm very interested in that. Very interested in why he put furries in the fucking movie. Like, I'm very interested. They didn't even chase her. It wasn't even like no. It
made just that long eye contact.
Yeah, just that long eye contact. Like, I'm trying to suck dick, lady. Do you mind? Like, I was really.
Are you joining?
Yeah, I was like, you can't wear that if you're joining us. You need to be, get the bear rug from downstairs or something. But so there's a lot of interesting things. I'm very interested in the butler. I'm very interested in Lloyd. there's a lot of things that I'm interested, but we didn't get to see more of. Like you know what I mean? It's kind of like I give the example of like Dirty Dancing. When you watch Dirty Dancing and you're like, oh, this is a story of it's a a dance competition, or not even a competition. It's just a dance.
It's just a dance.
It's just it's just like a talent show is what it is. It's not even a competition. There's no trophy at the end. But in the beginning of Dirty Dancing, you find out that the girl can't the original dancer can dance because she for the lack of a better phrase, she got sexually assaulted, and she's having a baby, and she has to get it aborted. And then we move away from that story. And as a viewer, I'm like, no, let's keep going with that story. That's a fucking interesting story. Let's see where that takes us. I don't give a fuck about this talent show. I don't give a shit about that. That's kind of how I feel about The Shining. I'm like, can we just stick to the fucking Lloyd and the party and the what's his name, Mr. Grant? What's his name?
Grady.
Can we just stick? Like, I'm very interested in what's happening here. So I if I go lower, I think it would be unjust because there was a lot of interesting things in this movie. I just wanted more of them and not what I got. And I get why he said here's Johnny because of Johnny Carlson, right? Wouldn't it have been better to make the character's name Johnny, or maybe him say here's Jack? I mean, like, wouldn't that make more sense? Because he's introducing himself, not Johnny Carlson.
Well, I mean, it was him doing Johnny Carson. It would be like doing an impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like instead of saying like "I'll be back," using like someone else's
"I will return"
catchphrase.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if he's gonna, like, the point of saying, like,
I'll be here next Tuesday to order the Reuben. It doesn't.
I just think that if he's gonna say he literally knocked down the door. And he's like saying, "Here I am." So if he's saying, "Here I am," wouldn't it make sense?
Like a hurricane.
I think it's just like I think
he said it twice.
They could have just changed the name of the character to Johnny. Wouldn't that make? I mean,
no, I would have hated that.
It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit neatly on a page. All work and no play makes Johnny. Man, it's too much.
Can I just tell you? I looked at that. So I was looking at that scene, right? Again, another scene that was ruined to me because I was 40 years late watching this movie. So I'm looking at that scene, and I was very curious. This is so dumb of me, but I'm very curious as to why in the very first page, it's the same amount of words, right? But some sentences are longer than the other.
Because there's a lot of typos. There's a lot of go backs. Like when you look, there are a lot of typos. Like Jack will be spelled incorrectly, or there's a lot of typos because it's like a first draft.
I just noticed the length of the.
Yeah, there are typos. My favorite thing about that scene, and I guess that's something we skipped over, but just real quickly, is the fact that when she flips through that, it's not just blocks of the same sentence over and over again. It's actually written like a book, and there's like artistic, like you're reading like House of Leaves, where like things are shaped and stuff like that.
I thought it was great. Also, I thought poor fucking bastard assistant who has to type all that shit up because that was not Xerox copies. Those were not Xerox copies. Those were fucking typed. And poor a fucking assistant, a fucking just that dude just typing.
Just some PA that was his only job.
And I'm sure they had to be a team, and then they had to give him that direction. Do not just type it over and over exactly the same way. It has to have typos.
Spacing's going to be different.
Yeah. You know, alignment has to be different. I feel bad for those motherfuckers, right? I mean, that's not. I'm in the movie business. What'd you do? Remember that scene where you just said, "I typed all that shit out. That's my contribution to cinematic history." So, what did you give it, DeBono?
I give this 4.5. I love this. I think that this movie is absolutely incredible. But like I said, I do have my gripes. I see what you guys are saying about some of the acting and stuff like that. But some of it is just stuff that I just cannot get over. And Shelley Duvall is really just such a big part of that.
That's so funny that the reason you don't give it 5 stars is because of the acting, and the reason I didn't go lower than 3, I thought the acting was great. Like that's how. I'm like, no, the acting saved this fucking movie for me, and you're like, this.
No, like I seriously look at this movie as a testament to what a great director can do with actors who are just going to kind of do what they do. So I do give this one 4.5. It is not a 5 for me, but I do love it, and I think it's a great movie.
I gotta go 5 with this. This is a movie where every time I watch it, I enjoy it more and more.
What did you give Rosemary's Baby, Dave?
5.
5, yeah. I'm interested in knowing which classic horror movie you don't give a 5 to. Like, I'm very interested in knowing which classic you won't give a 5
we haven't done it, but if we go all the way back to the original Dracula, that doesn't get a 5.
It's gonna get a 7.
Yeah, it's 5 plus 10. It gets a 15. No, like I'm just like within the modern era, I guess 40 years ago, still a long time, but like that's you know what I mean. I'm interested in knowing what because yeah. Even Halloween, you gave that one a 5, right? The original Halloween.
The original Halloween, I would give a 5. Halloween 2,
I mean, we did it.
Get a 4.
We did it. We did it on the earlier episodes. It's on Shiver. You can check it out.
Yeah, it's somewhere there.
You can head to shiverpod.com.
Yeah.
Andy Chacon says 11.
Turned it up to
11. So yeah, I would give it 5 missing dopey stickers. Okay. That's 5 out of 5 for me. I love this movie. I still haven't completely decoded it. I don't know that anyone ever will, and that's part of why I'm giving it a 5, because I continually have the desire to go back and watch this movie and rediscover things and discover things I haven't yet. It's to me it's I don't know, it's a masterpiece. It's a work of art. The
average that averages out to 4.1 missing dopey stickers.
Oh yeah, I was doing the same thing.
All right, that's not bad. 4.1. So that's pretty good. So
ironically, if you take away the acting of this movie, it both hurts and helps.
it remains at 4.1. Okay, so Neri, do you have that picker?
Yeah, I have the picker.
Oh, you got a list ready? You gonna use the picker?
Yeah.
It's all right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I made my picker list.
Okay,
I made my picker list.
Let me see here.
Now, some of these I have multiples in that,
you gotta
category.
You gotta
so yeah.
Let me know
Let's
when
see
you're ready.
How I feel. All right, go ahead. Let's do this. So next week we will be doing Supernatural. Supernatural. All right.
Ordinary steps away.
All right. So
this is out of all of the anything religious. Those are the ones that really fuck me up as far as fear is concerned. Those are the ones that like the Omen was fucking brutal for me.
I got at least one on my list.
The Exorcist was fucking destroyed me as a grown man. I saw The Exorcist for the first time when I was like 25 in the re-release in theaters, and that fucked me up for real. Like
that was episode number 1 of Shiver, all the way back in 2017. For those of you that are interested.
By the way, the 2017 the episode 1 of Shiver was not the first time I watched the movie. I don't want to make it too much.
No. I'm just saying that we have done The Exorcist. We may do it again.
No.
Okay, so I had 2 possibilities here. I had either Evil Dead, but I think
Evil Dead. You've been wanting to do Evil Dead forever.
No. Because of what you just said, we're gonna go with a different one. My second one, which is The Conjuring.
Oh yeah. I'm down to watch The Conjuring.
Well, we'll talk about The Conjuring next week.
Or next episode. We don't know when next week is gonna be.
Well, next episode. We'll get to it when we get to it. So thank you so very much for joining us here, especially to Andrew and to Andy, to Robert. Did anyone else come in here? Well, it looks like just those 3 guys. Thanks for joining us. It was nice having you here. Thank you, Andrew. He says great show. I appreciate that. So please make sure that you follow us on social media. You can find Neri on Instagram, Twitter, what was his name.com. You can find him and Daniel right on the Mount Geekmore podcast along with myself. There's a whole bunch of podcasts you can find on our network, the Geek Bro network, which you can find at geekbro.net, right? You've got What's Up, Bro, Pero Let Me Tell You. Comedy Fitness is apparently coming back, right?
Yes.
We've got A Dose of Ellie, Childlike at Best. I know I'm
Seasons,
missing
a
one.
TV podcast.
Seasons, yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. Seasons, a TV podcast. Am I missing anything?
Let's see, Woo Bro,
Childlike at best.
Child Like a Best, he said, with Mike Valdez.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did say that.
But let me tell you, I think you got them all. Seasons. Yeah, there you go.
All right. I didn't
Make sure to check out the Shiver Pod Instagram and social media, because that's where we post when we're going to be recording next. Because of our schedules, we can't make this originally the original concept was supposed to be a monthly podcast. We've now done 3 episodes in 2 weeks or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
So we're overshooting ourselves, but just so that you guys know, keep us on live. And if you're listening to this audio, which most of you do, we still get more numbers on the audio than we do video. Just know you could watch us live and you could comment like Andrew and Andy and Robert have on Facebook and YouTube. Go to Shiver Pod. Everything is Shiver Pod. Instagram, everything is Shiver Pod. Pod.
Yep. And if you want to send us some hate mail, you can send it to shiverpod@gmail.com.
You know what we should add to the picker wheel is a listener pick. And like, if you suggest movies, we'll put that on a listener pick category, and that's another category that we should add to the thing. So
yeah, I do seem to remember Andrew or Andy rather asking me if we could do Poultrygeist a couple years ago. So maybe we can add that.
All right. Well, Andy doesn't want Neri on the podcast. All right, that's fine. Thanks a lot.
Not Poltergeist, Poultrygeist.
Poultrygeist.
The trauma film. Yeah.
Is it really? Is there a Poultrygeist? Is that a real?
Yeah.
I thought you were just saying it because of the way I said shinning. I was like,
oh no, it's a Lloyd Kaufman, baby.
Yep.
I did not
know. The one and only.
All right.
Although I would like to do Poltergeist.
Yeah.
At some point. Okay. So I think I have that on my list here.
Next, we're gonna watch The Conjuring, correct?
Yes.
The Conjuring. That's it.
All right.
Figured finally doing something, a little new. We did Fear Street. So anyway, all right, folks. Fright you very much.